All righty. What are we going to talk about? Remind me again.
Remind me again. So, so my idea was to do. I did. It was just a title that came to me. I just throw it out there and we see what comes with it. It was like TRE origins came to me. I was like
Mhm.
TRE origins. I mean, you told your story many times before. Well, why would that be interesting for people to hear again? But how did it start and where do you see it's going today? Or like when you started it, how did you see this is where it's going? And where do you think it's at today? Where is the discrepancy between where it has gotten to and where you believe it can go to,
Right.
seen from where you started?
Mhm. Okay. Well, the long story shortened very much is it started mostly revealing itself when I was living in the Middle East, because I was living in a number of countries at war. I've told this story many times. But what was very key and instrumental is I saw that the tremor mechanism in TRE is organically evoked by the body, almost like it's protective mechanism. It helps us self-regulate our nervous system so that we don't go into extreme highs or extreme lows. So we're genetically encoded with that. Now that's a pretty powerful awareness to have that there's a genetic encoding in us that we haven't used. Actually, we've dismissed it as being bad or wrong or demonstrating weakness or fear, whereas in fact, it's demonstrating a great deal of healthy self-regulation.
Mm.
So our biggest obstacle, and still is in some ways, is trying to get it into mainstream medical services, mostly so they could use it as one more technique for helping patients or clients regulate their own nervous systems because they're designed to do that. So that was one of the things that we tried to do, keep introducing it to hospital staff or medical professionals, and it didn't really go very far. But the clinical therapy community picked up on it very big, mostly those who are already sensitive to body work and psychological counseling. So they were quite willing and able to combine those two together extremely well. Now, that was good. It really did help TRE spread. Its only drawback that I see is it took TRE out of the category of being a self-help technique and placed it right back into the category of needing a professional therapist to guide you through the process. Well, that becomes a complication because that doesn't exist in the largest parts of the world. And so we're suggesting that unless even the culture has a psychological um, frame of reference, because not all cultures believe in Freud and the development of psychoanalysis from the Western world. They don't believe in that. And so you can't take that exactly the way it is into another culture. And when we're working with many of these other cultures, we're talking about serious natural disasters and political violence potentially. Um, and, and that's where you have hundreds of thousands of traumatized people. So that becomes our gift, if you will, the TRE tremor mechanism to be able to bring this out to hundreds of thousands of people who would not have access to any type of therapeutic process for recovery from their traumas because they simply don't have other modalities available to them. So that's what I see as sort of a little bit of our future. Not only are we working with traumatized populations, but we're working with the trauma people who work with them, all the emergency medical teams, the firefighters, the police officers, all of these groups, a lot of nonprofit organizations that their staff are living and working in situations of extreme poverty and violence, and they're being traumatized. So there's huge populations out there that we should be thinking of original and creative ways of accessing these other populations that are limited by all the other modalities, but not TRE.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense in terms of origin. And I got so excited I forgot to introduce us even. So we've been talking a while since we put on record, but yeah, today we're talking about the origin of TRE. Like last time we talked about where can TRE go, the potential avenues it can spread, and today ask David to come on to talk about the origin of TRE, where it has gotten to, and where it can potentially go, right? Where are we at right now, and what could we do to continue moving it forward? So if I flip the question, I know it's a self-help tool, and I mean, I really like that idea to make it accessible, because a lot of people cannot access a therapist, they cannot afford it, or like you said, they might not believe in it because they don't have the culture or belief system or upbringing that allows them to say this is a practice or philosophy that we even apply ourselves to. What do you think we could do more professionally when we work with TRE that could maybe allow the process to go deeper? I mean, you've done a lot of sessions with me now this time when you stayed here in Thailand. What could we look more for as TRE providers to expand ourselves, but also help our clients to go further with TRE?
Yeah, this is a complication, and it's the best question to ask, but its answer is quite complex because, quite frankly, we can give a lot more theory if we want to in terms of PowerPoints and education, but I have not found that to be useful for TRE providers very much at all. What I find most useful is they continue to keep doing it over and over, because this is a practical technique. It's not really theoretical. And we're working with the body's natural mechanism that's even not well articulated by the medical community. So we're not going to get help from that dimension or that science. But we have this amazing mechanism that we have easy access to. So I think what the future is, and this is where TRE providers and trainers have to take this up a little bit seriously, they have to do a lot of work observing the body and observe how the tremor mechanism moves or doesn't move. They have to move outside of the confines of what they were trained to do in the training. That was just the skeleton, the basics of how do you apply TRE. The skill of it and the artistry of it is through each individual learning some new intervention, just because they were able to observe the body in a different way than they've seen before. And so they apply an intervention that they've never been taught. It partly comes from an intuitive sense of connecting to the client, or visually, you actually see that the tremor mechanism stops somewhere, which tells you there's a myofascial blockage of some sort. The resistance could be psycho-emotional, or it could just simply be physical. But that's the skill of the provider, is to work with those specific moments that the client or the individual can't get through by themselves. That's our artistry. If they're stuck, if the same pattern's happening over and over, if they reach some place of fear or anxiety that's a little bit overwhelming, those are the reasons they need a provider, because that's what we're training ourselves to become more and more skilled with, observing the body and knowing how to make interventions that are completely unacknowledged in the sense that we don't have it in the training manual or anything like that, but we couldn't possibly put it in there. The thousands of interventions that I've had to figure out how to make in the human body, I couldn't possibly register all those in a book, as an example, people have asked me to do. And they're going to be meaningless, quite frankly, unless you visually see it. Very much like the sessions that we see today, I could tell people how to make the interventions that I made, but I only made them when I saw that that's when the body needed it. So that's kind of where we're stuck, is people need to improve their skill of observing the body and having their own comfort level of using both their intuition and their vision to sort of come together and say, oh, I think I know what the next intervention is to help this body unfold at a deeper level.
Wonderful. So you learn the basics only to let the basics go, so you can continue and go into the good stuff, the deeper interventions, and become a little bit more refined in your sensory awareness of what it is that's happening in front of you.
Yeah, I think this is typical of all trainings. You learn all the basics first and you stick with the basics because they guide you through a process. Well, that's wonderful. But then afterwards, the skill level or the artistry is about you learning how to go beyond the basics. I still have those in my background as well, but I also have creative ideas and interventions that I've sort of been playing with for the past 30 years about how do you help this part of the body or this part of the body. They don't always work. And that's the whole point, is that intervening with a body as they're tremoring could take 3 to 6 interventions, or could just take one intervention. But each time that may change. And that's what our skill is about, being able to move with the organism that's in front of us. We've talked about sometimes it needs very, very light, gentle change or intervention, which could make a very deep change. Sometimes you need really deep, hard interventions in the body, which will then help it move in a way that it wasn't able to do before. So how do we, as providers, how do we pulsate next to the individual who's tremoring? Am I gentle and safe? Do I know when to apply a soft intervention or when to apply a harder intervention? There's nothing you could teach about that. Everybody could watch me do it, but they still have to apply it to their own client. So I'm always telling everybody, make your interventions, be creative. That's the only thing that TRE lacks, is the creativity of individuals learning new ways to assist the tremor mechanism to move through the human body.
Yeah, definitely. And how do you feel that is playing into the realms of I'm using the word body work when I talk about it, because I'm not saying chiropractor or massage therapist. I use body work as an umbrella term for anyone that's hands-on or energetically with the body. How much do you think that aspect plays into learning more interventions in TRE? If I come from a therapeutical background and I'm used to maybe psychological interventions and talking to someone, and I practice TRE, would I benefit from learning more body work and being more hands-on to progress in these skills that you were talking about?
Yeah, well, evidence is already showing, even psychotherapists, they all have about 7 types of therapies that they've studied, combining them into one. Stephen Porges was telling me about this. So really, we're kind of a hodgepodge. We're picking up all these little tools from all over the place, and then we're combining them together, which I think is being very helpful many times, because you're right. If you go down the field of psychology alone, at some point, the body's going to want some type of adjustment or intervention, because there's an adjustment being made psychologically. So I think all body work techniques stand to benefit, first of all, from the tremor mechanism itself. I'm not using TRE here. I'm saying the tremor mechanism, genetically encoded in the human body. Every body therapist should know that this exists. And they then can practice themselves. How do they incorporate this into their own body modalities? And likewise, how do TRE providers that are all over the world, trained in many other body modalities, how do they incorporate their modality into the tremor mechanism of a TRE session? See, we should be having the dialogue going both ways. That's how we're going to create new educational information. That's how we're all going to learn. We need a chiropractor who explains TRE from his or her perspective, and a craniosacral therapist. We need all of these people to start talking from their perspective. How have they seen the tremor mechanism helpful in the modality that they are applying to their clients? I think all of that, again, is nothing but creative dialogue, and that it's actually not complicated. It's quite simple. We just have to get people to sit down and do it. But this is, for me, the future of TRE. It's got to be more expansive. It's got to be more creative. People have got to lose their inhibitions of just staying in the parameters of what they were taught, and be able to step out both professionally and safely in a bold way to start saying, I'm going to look deeper at this tremor mechanism and its fullest potential in the human body. I think we all need to be doing that.
Yeah, I agree. And we discussed it earlier today too. When I look at TRE, I really look at it as it opens the body up from the inside. A lot of, from my knowledge, a lot of different practices and modalities that are, either if it's psychotherapy or body work, it's something from the outside coming in, trying to affect us. Even if you go from the outside within to open the body up, you're still coming from the outside. And with TRE or the tremors, like you said, not just TRE alone, you're literally learning how to open up the body from the inside. And you can learn so much about observing the body if we have that mindset that we actually, I don't know what's going on. I'm curious. I go into this session and body, show me what's going on. Show me what's going on with you. It feels more like a conversation. You're like, okay, what's going on with this body? And then you sit back and it tells you a story, and it could be a fall or a land, or like you said, what happened with that shoulder? And the body starts to respond. And I think that's a beautiful way of working with the body.
Well, I think it's, in all honesty, the most organic way, because the tremor mechanism does access its own patterns. So it's showing us what it can access and what it can't access. So in a sense, yes, it's showing us, here's my story today, because every day could be different, honestly. But here's where my organism is today. My chest is tight here. My right hip is hurting. That may not have been yesterday, but today that's what the body is showing us. So we activate the tremor mechanism and we try to see, can we assist it to release the tension that we're currently feeling at the moment. And so I think the two biggest gifts of the tremor mechanism, or TRE, that carries the tremor mechanism message is, I've always said this, it can be done with large populations, and we desperately need that at the way the world is today. And it is so organic to the human organism that it assists us not being so narrow in this other skills that we learned, not just in TRE, but if I've learned like chiropractic adjustment, or I'm a physical therapist or something like that, and I access the tremor mechanism while I'm doing this other modality, how's that tremor mechanism going to dialogue with the interventions I'm making? And what's it going to show me that's useful for me to understand the client's body better, because it's showing me something deeper inside than I can actually see in the external of the body. And I think that's invaluable for us. It should be in standard medical practice.
Yeah, because it's really self-discovery, the way that I look at it from my own point of view, but also the people that I've trained and that I work with, the clients. It's really teaching you about yourself in a way that's quite unique. You can say, okay, your thinking mind is not the only thing that exists. You actually have a body consciousness that talks, and you're like, yeah, I like the idea, intellectual. And then you go practice something like theory, and you're like, whoa, it's actually not me. It's real. You get a very tangible sensation for what that is like.
Well, see, that's one of the things that's, I think, the selling point for TRE, is that all the theory sounds lovely, and people know about, oh, you have to let go of your body, you have to relax, you have to let go inside. But when they experience something that's doing something to their body that they're not cognitively directing, they're absolutely shocked, which is a real interesting thing for me, that we would think that our body can't do something that we're not aware of. See, so in a sense, it's still the ego that we've been trained to control this human organism in which we live. But if we give the human organism a chance to live itself, it shows the ego how it can contribute to being peaceful and quiet and centered inside. So the body does contribute to everything that we're trying to do psycho-emotionally. Calm
Mm.
down, relax, meditate. And many people can't do it, but the body can guide us in that direction. Like this one TRE provider said, doing TRE is like mindfulness on steroids. It just really improves or increases the speed with which you can go into yourself with less effort.
I love that. That's really amazing. Was that part of, I mean, I heard your story many times, and I asked you the story many times as well, where theory comes from, and you talk about it as kind of a gift back to humanity. We all have this inside of us. I think it should be accessible for everyone. But looking one step further, would you say that was one of your goals or one of your visions, or something that came up for you during the creation of TRE, that this can actually help someone expand their consciousness and challenge belief system, awareness of self. Like you said, the ego think that this is everything that exists. And then you have this tool that reminds you what's already there. Was that one of the reasons you created TRE, or was that something that came up for you as you were formulating?
No, that kind of came up because I really was focusing on TRE when I was living in the Middle East and experiencing war myself. So it was all about physical because there was no psychological connection with the people that I was working with. They didn't understand psychology, it didn't make sense to them. And counseling was sort of useless when you're dealing with the amount of trauma that they experienced in war. And so that was like last on my list. First on my list was what can I do for them that they can help themselves. And the only thing I had, I was really reduced to nothing because I had all this psychological training that was completely useless. And I was reduced to nothing except watching the body. And so I thought, all right, we all have that body. And then that's when I began observing how does it react during a bombing or a shooting or during terror and fear and all that stuff. And then I began to see patterns of the natural reaction of the body as it's designed to protect itself to live life through lots of diversities. And so that's when it became going way underneath culture, underneath languages, underneath everything, and looking at what I called the human organism. A big amoeba, it's in the middle of war. How is it trying to survive? What's it doing? And what's organic in it that it's doing that we're not even conscious of? And that was sort of the direction. When it came back to the Western world, when I left the Middle East and brought it back, and people told me to write a book about it, I did. But that's when it began to be taken up by clinical therapists, which was the right thing to do to kind of incorporate it into the Western world. It would go more easily through that avenue. Now, a lot of body therapists that I introduced it to, interestingly enough, didn't take it up very much. And I think it had to do with, in some ways, it was a challenge to their narrative of the body work that they studied. And I'm saying, oh, well, you missed this piece in your body work study. So if you say that to a chiropractor or craniosacral therapist or something, you say, well, you kind of missed a piece. It's pretty important. They don't like to hear that too much. And I respect that. I understand that. So I actually had more difficulty getting it into body therapy than I did into psychotherapy in the Western world.
That's quite a story.
Yeah.
But it feels like the way, I mean, the way we talked about it, where did it start from? Where is it at right now? Where could it potentially go? The way that we have talked about encouraging people, theory providers, trainers to explore it and further develop it, it's kind of the nature how you learned it. Like, because you came in and you were a social worker, you had all these counseling skills and psychological models and intervention, and you said, and I was reduced to nothing. And one could accept that and just go, okay, these people understand psychology, so I won't do anything. But you felt like well, no, they're okay, what can I do instead? And I feel maybe that's the maybe spirit of theory, or the yeah, like the trait, the culture of TRE, that
Yeah,
it was birthed from watching the body, listening to body, following the
right.
organism. So it will only be natural that the only way to continue progressing it would also be to challenge oneself a little bit, right? With your own belief systems and ideas and so on.
Oh yeah. I think the one of the best and worst things happened was I was reduced to nothing. I mean, I came there with all this hope. I've got all this psychological training and I can deal with the emotions and all that stuff. That was exciting that I thought I had all that to offer. And when I got there, it was useless. And so that was like a big crash for me. Now I was still living there. And so it was in that sort of environment that I thought, okay, psychology is not, I just can't use it. It's not going to work here. And then I was just living life with the local populations, experiencing the traumas myself, etc. And so what really happened, and this is a very powerful turning point, is that when I discovered when I'm living with people and experiencing myself, literally the life or death edge. Tomorrow I could have died in every one of those situations. Every one of us could have died. So every day we actually lived in the reality that we might be killed tomorrow. Now that's a really powerful difference. Like if all of us knew we were going to die next week, we would certainly live this week differently. See, well, this is what these people lived like. They knew that there's a possibility that I'll die tomorrow. And so they actually lived today differently. Now, I got invited into that unconsciously, of course, but I discovered I was living every day differently. And so if you think of that, these loving people who are struggling to live life and this lack of ability to support them in the struggle, that's what TRE was born out of. It's like, how can I support human beings who are at the edge of life and death every day in a way that could reduce that stress and anxiety of everyday life? And so it was really about two things: serving humanity, which was suffering very deeply. That's what I was living in. It's like, how do we help human beings that are caught in this cruelty of war that nobody wanted to be in? How do we help them? And how do we um, teach them how to help themselves? And that is the basic spirit of TRE, a consciousness of alleviating a little bit of humanity's suffering. That's what I got from Mother Teresa when I worked with her and her sisters. And then how do we empower them to be able to continue to do this by themselves as a community or a family?
That's a powerful gift and lesson for sure. And
Yeah.
really feels like a legacy, when you're saying from your previous teachers, and it feels like adapting, like you're in it's almost like life itself. You're in a situation, and how do I adapt to that? How do I navigate that? And what can I do from the situation? What kind of resources do I have? And I really like what you said. There's one difference living life like tomorrow could be the last day from a fearful state, because then you're pulsating with adrenaline and so on.
Mm-hmm.
But it's another one living at the edge, but being calm in it, that you have an acceptance in it. And I guess that's where you were able to give them, without going into psychology or challenging their belief system, the tremors were allowing them to let go of the stress, so they could just accept, okay, tomorrow might die, but I'm okay today, right now.
Yes, exactly. I think one of the key things is I took out all other disturbing or obstacles, like this isn't psychology, this isn't spirituality, this isn't religion, even to say this isn't a technique or a method. It's your genetic encoding. I'm just showing you how to access it again. It's always been in there. It went dormant because of the way we've been taught to live in our bodies. But your body needs, not wants it back, it needs it back. And so I was able to demonstrate this is you now. And that does bring a sense of, I can live through this. That's what happened to me. I could go back to war right now. It's not nearly as disturbing, well, because I've lived through several of them, but it was experientially. If I went back to war, it's like, all right, I'll have my reactions, I'll be frightened and do all the things that everybody will do, but I know I'll survive, meaning my organism's going to make it through that. And when I come back to the States, I will take my 6 weeks or whatever to let my body come out of freeze, come out of numbness, and restore its aliveness again. But it feels very hopeful because I know it can do that. So I don't come back to the stage thinking, oh my God, I have post-traumatic stress. I need therapy for 5 years. No, I need about 6 weeks of letting the body restore its own natural rhythm again, and I'll be fine. I've already done that.
Mm. So we also talked about in the spirit, I mean, you were in places to learn about this mechanism. I mean, we're not going to advise people to go to war zones to learn about this. If they're going to go and work and do humanitarian resource work, that's great. No one's going to block that, but you don't have to go the same route as David did. Well, we talked about we could do retreats where people can come and live in an atmosphere where they actually get to practice this, especially now after COVID, I think, because a lot of the trainings are online. And I think that's great. And it becomes more accessible to people. And I teach most sessions online. But I also think there is a gift to being physically in a place and being immersed in a certain energy and getting exposed to TRE, but maybe different modalities or different facets of TRE that maybe not like a wartime
Right.
country, right? But you get an experience because you talked about it. It's experiential at this level. Okay, you learn the basics, you know how to tremor, you can keep yourself safe, someone else too. Now what? Okay, you need more experience.
Yeah.
So how would you say, how would that look like, even if we start from there? I mean, I have my ideas, but how would that even look like if someone
Okay.
does a retreat in that sense?
I'll tell you my ideas, but you have to tell me yours too.
Okay.
All right. Okay. So there are two different ways of seeing this. One is, yes, people do not have to go to war, but I wish every TRE provider would have to go to a natural disaster just to learn how to work with a large population of people. That would be invaluable. And how you have to adjust your rules. You have to adjust everything that you like rigidly think you're supposed to do. That gets blown out of the water when you're sitting in front of 200 people who just survived a tsunami or their house burned down because of a wildfire. Everyone should have that experience, because what it did for me over and over is made me break the rules, break the rules, break the rules. They don't apply to this situation. And the tremor mechanism is applicable to every situation, every human being. So what was preventing its application was me and my narrow-mindedness. So I had to keep breaking that over and over and think of a new way. How do I introduce this? Even with different audiences, if I'm working with a Muslim audience or a Christian audience, and that's part of their culture, that I've got to articulate TRE in a way that's acceptable within the cultural context. And so that was always different. And I love that. That's why I love just flying into an area, being dropped off, not knowing anything at all, and just create from the foundation of what's here. How do you create something? So I think that's invaluable. Now, in terms of doing like a retreat thing, that's really good, because I know that the TRE people really want to go deeper, but again, the only way they can do that is through practical application, both having TRE done on themselves and TRE done on other people, or they're doing it on other people. That interchange works really well. We often do where one person works in front of the whole group, and the whole group, I've done this before, I tell them, okay, we're all seeing the same body tremor. And if there's 5 people watching, I'll say, what's the intervention you would make? What's the intervention you would make? Because we might have 5 different interventions from seeing the same body tremor. That's another thing. We've got to relax and be okay with that. Because yes, I can watch your body tremor, and 3 other people could see the same thing, but come up with 3 other different interventions. Well, all 3 of them might be directly applicable. They might all work. I still have to follow my intuitive sense, because that's part of how I'm seeing your body move. Somebody else can make another intervention, that's fine, and your body will most likely react to them. It's sort of like different pathways towards the same goal. That's how I see it. But the other thing that I'd love to do, and particularly here at your center, is I really think that we need to demonstrate how other modalities combine with the tremor mechanism in TRE. How does the tremor mechanism respond to these other modalities? And how are these other modalities influenced by the tremor mechanism? I think this is a perfect setting to do that exploration, then be able to make even a booklet out of it, and certainly videos from it, explaining the interplay back and forth between this intervention and TRE and this intervention. It'd be wonderful to have like 5 examples of that, which we could do in a controlled center like this, and then actually produce advanced educational information for the TRE community around the world.
Yeah, that sounds very amazing. And I understand both of those aspects of going to a natural catastrophe. It's funny when you talk about that because I have a lot of different trainings for that. The ear acupuncture, the nada that I do, they used it at World Trade Center. They used it after, I think it was an earthquake in Nepal a couple of years ago. There's a
Uh-huh.
couple of events that happens, and these are ways like TRE and ear acupuncture and so on. There are different practices that you can use on large populations. So that might be something for me for the future
Yeah.
to develop my own
Well,
experience.
yes, you're going to contact Hindra in Indonesia. He's always working. Look how many natural disasters Indonesia has. Volcanoes erupting, tsunamis, earthquakes. And his team is really good. They're always moving out and doing work with natural disaster survivors.
That's amazing. I think
And
that's you learn a lot from that. If not, like sure, you're helping people, but I think also is beneficial in two ways. You get to learn something and you get to give something at the same
oh,
time.
absolutely. What you really learn, which is what I think the TRE community needs a lot of, is you learn how to just fracture your paradigm and look at that moment right there, these people in front of you, and how will you create a new way for them to experience their tremor mechanism that might not be following the standard TRE procedure.
That's amazing. That's amazing. In terms of a retreat here, I believe the questions that I get a lot is how to consensually do touch. You know, that's a whole realm itself. Even if you are a body worker, what I noticed both from craniosacral therapy and from TRE was a lot of people's body goes into freeze when you start to do
Mhm.
body work. And they're so used to doing it that they won't question. You might say, how does this feel? Oh, good. But you see there's a blank face and so on. So a
Mhm.
lot of the work that I do and educate people is really how can you empower the person to realize this does actually not feel good, or I would like more pressure or less pressure. So I think the quality of touch is very important and understand that whole dynamic. I mean, if you're a body worker, you may have it, you may not have it because it's not all modalities learn about the nervous system and
Mhm.
how to navigate the nervous system. So if anything, I would say that's definitely what I'm passionate about to teach people grounding and how to teach them working with the nervous system as you're working with the organism away from the theory. Like you said, what am I looking at and what can I do from here? And really hands-on becoming more refined in those skills.
Right. Yeah. And I think in this environment, as an example, we can all do hands-on because most people coming are going to be certified in some type of body therapy or in TRE. But as long as they're being supervised, it'll be quite safe experience. But you're right. I need to do something, and I do this a lot of times. I will make an intervention, and if there's a trainee watching me, then I'll say, all right, put your finger right here where I made this intervention. I want you to feel this, because right there you can feel the tightness in the spine. They would not have been able to see that by themselves. But the fact that I could see it and then have them make the intervention is the experience they needed to feel that and say, oh, now I know what it feels like. And then I say, okay, now on other bodies, go ahead and reach under that same spot and see if you can feel that, right? There's an intervention. Not every spine is going to need it, but you understand how to feel it now and know that that's the spot you need to work on. So I think there's so much that we could do with simple stuff. Even spouses, as an example, I keep teaching them to work with each other. Look, hold his head. That's all you have to do. Or, touch her hand when she's tremoring. Just be supportive. So I'm, again, trying to teach families how to do this with themselves and to do it with their children. We have got to empower people in their own medical makeup. We want to keep it safe for them. That's the big argument. But I think more people can do it safely than those. The only ones who can't do it safely will be the ones who are severely traumatized and flood or dissociate immediately. Well, they need clinical help, obviously. Or people might have physical limitations because of injuries or illnesses. And so they have to be taken care of. But other than that, when you're talking about a general family, and husband and wife, or partners, and they've got some children, there is no reason why we can't be and shouldn't be informing them how to help each other as a nuclear family reduce stress, because it's just like alcohol. If there's one person who drinks alcohol in the family, everybody's affected by it. If there's one person stressed out in the family, the whole family is stressed out, not just that one individual. So I think we need to restore that kind of consciousness to work as a family unit or as an organization or as a group of people supporting one another. That's natural humanity.
And I really feel that's what you can do with in many different settings, but that's really what I see when you come together as a group of, let's say, TRE providers or trainers. That's what you can do. You can experience how does it feel to receive, how does it feel to give to someone else, how do we work together as a team, and then of course, what you're able to do in your country and in your region and what you need, certifications, qualifications, and so on. But there's a lot of work that you can do that I feel is not impeding on the therapeutic society or the boundaries of therapeutical work, which is just body-based. Like you said, spouses, tremor, learn how to place one hand here and so on. I think that, like I like I always say, I think TRE is a rocket, this is a spaceship, and we look at it a little bit as a kick bike because we have this, okay, I'm going to tremor, I'm going to do the 7 exercises, and this is the way it looks like. But there is a plethora of ways of working with it. And for me, that's really why I want to bring to the TRE community, and not just TRE, to the world in general, that
Right.
you can really immerse yourself and open up and continue to learn. Because a lot of times you finish the training and you're like, now what? Okay, I'm going to teach people to
Right.
relax and tremor a little bit 4 or 5 times. Okay, they're gone. What do I do then? How do I continuously teach people to want to evolve? And how do I stay motivated to continuously wanting to evolve and progress?
Right. Right. I see, again, in my mind, the only way to do that is to keep experiencing it over and over, because you're not going to get any more from theory. You can read lots of things, but that's not going to motivate you in a sense. Experiencing it both in your own body. That's why I'm telling TRE providers around the world, every week, you should be having somebody else, even find a new provider every week and get on Zoom and have that new provider lead you in their way. What do they see? We have so much to learn from each other that we're really not sharing. And we need to share it through experience, not through theory. See, and it's so easy for us to do that. And it's kind of sad that we're not doing that, because the amount of growth would be huge if just simple TRE people around the world did a session on each other 1 day a week. And you just picked a new provider every week to do a session with, and you can do an exchange, so there's no money involved. I mean, that would be hugely growthful for the TRE community.
And connection too. That's really what I'm looking at. You will connect with a lot of people that maybe you wouldn't, because many times we kind of live in our bubble. We have a social media, we get
Yeah.
that information, meet that person. So it's an exposure also to different people, different energies. And I think that connection ultimately will make you more prepared. You might just as a human to grow more as a human, but definitely as a TRE provider or trainer, that wow, I've met these many people from all this over different cultures and walks of life, and I received and I have given session to them.
Yeah, even in different cultures that I've been in, I've had to learn how to respectfully intervene in the body in a different way according to their cultural construct. And it was wonderful to learn that. I mean, all these skills now belong to me, but because I put myself in all these different circumstances where I had no idea what to do, I was completely confused. And that really disturbs a lot of people. And I'm saying, but that's the place where the growth is going to occur. Go to a place where you don't know how to work there and start asking questions and figure out how to work there. And it works perfectly, because there I find that people are willing to share with you, here's what we do in our culture, or here's how we work with women in a male-dominated culture, as an example. All of that is you're asking them to share their culture and their life with you, which they're very, very happy to do. And in return, you're going to try to respectfully make interventions and guide them through TRE in a way that fits within their cultural context. It's a win-win situation for everybody, but we've got to be willing to not know what we're doing and to be comfortable with that.
And I think you really bring up a topic that it requires probably an own podcast, but the energetics of the nuclear family, how we can really work with self-regulation, co-regulation, and actually just, even if you're not a TRE provider, I guess when you're working with spouses, just see the dynamics between them. Are they tense? Is the body relaxed? How can we create relaxation between them? And I would assume there is more harmony when you get the bodies to relax in tremors.
Yeah, well, there are some spouses who do TRE regularly together, and they'll like lay down in bed before they go to sleep at night, and they'll just hold hands while they're tremoring. Right there already, the tremoring is used as a way of ending the day and connecting with one another in sort of a loving, peaceful, caring way. That's all. It's kind of simple, and we make it too complicated. In terms of the whole thing about psychology and psychotherapy, TRE from the very beginning was taught as it is not psychotherapy. That's why we can certify people who aren't licensed or certified in any sort of clinical psychotherapy, because it's not that. And so we're not interfering with that domain at all, because TRE is not that domain. Psychotherapy is another modality, no different than the others, in which TRE gets included. So you could say craniosacral, psychotherapy, chiropractic, whatever, all those other modalities. Psychotherapy fits in as another modality. It is not TRE.
That's wonderful. I can't wait until we put together this retreat and also start working, like the ideas we shared during your stay, and really to continue to move TRE forward, but not just TRE as a modality, but people's inspiration and willingness to grow and using this avenue with TRE and the tremors that it does. And I think there is a lot we can do and put together. So I'm very excited of continue this and building some more awareness for people to realize there is so much more potential than what we do. And just like you noticed when you came to war-torn countries, oh, this is what I thought I should do. This is where I thought my world view is. And then I have to expand because there's another need from the world. And I think that's what
Right.
TRE is called to do as well.
Yeah, yeah. I think that is nothing different than just living life. I happen to live some unusual circumstances in life, which gave me different vision about life. But all of us have some situation, some circumstance that can challenge us to broaden our perspective, not just in TRE or the tremor mechanism, but in the way that we approach human beings around this whole concept of TRE and the tremor mechanism. I just think there's such huge potential. And the only thing that's limiting us is our creative excitement to move forward in these new ways. I still think that what we're seeing now, and I think we'll see more in the future, is organizational training, where we're training agencies of people and not just individuals. That looks like that's the upcoming future because of all the amount of traumas that we see in various countries around the world. We now have to start being serious about training large groups of people.
Yeah, so you're talking about a fast track as an alternative to the certification trainings because the trauma is coming up so fast and in large populations around the world.
Yeah, not just a fast track, although that has come up several times already because of these outbreaks of war and people wanting to bring TRE to mostly their military or the families involved in these war situations. So that's part of it. Yes, we have to consider fast tracking in emergencies. And we've been doing that all along. We just haven't called it that, but we've been doing that in various countries around the world that needed people to be certified right away. And then we followed up with them to make sure that they were solid, et cetera. So not just that, but we really do have to think about every person needs to consider how to invite TRE into organizations and organizational structures, because there you have to rewrite the whole training program that fits the scheduling of a firefighter or a police officer, or their training program in their academy, which we recently did. We had to adjust the training entirely to fit within the academy's training program. Now it can be incorporated into it and works easily, but it's not this typical paradigm of training. That's what we have to break, is we have to be much more open and receptive to creatively adjusting the training program that suits the circumstances in which we're trying to bring TRE.
Feels like full circle where we started with TRE, the background and your need to expand, and we, yeah, I kind of feel we come back to that now again and again.
Yeah.
So I really feel that's a core message too, also in what transpired in our conversation today.
Yeah, I agree.
Wonderful. Well,
Okay.
so if people want to know more about what I'm doing at the center here, you can go to livingwiththespirit.com, and we have online mentorships. We have live-in retreats here. And I also teach the TRE provider training program, of course, and a lot of more fun stuff to come now after your visit here. But you can go to our website, livingwiththespirit.com, and you can find out more. We will post a lot more information the next upcoming weeks. And feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions, and we'll be more than happy to guide you right. And thank you so much always, David, for sharing your wisdom, time, and knowledge. It's, yeah, very invigorating hearing from you. And it's like a Christmas tree. I just feel, ideas going as soon as we talk. It's very nice, very creative.
Good. Okay. Thank you for the invitation. I appreciate it.
Thank you.